In the shadowed depths of medieval Europe, a grim theater unfolded, a dark spectacle of fear, fanaticism, and barbarity that stained centuries with blood and terror. The witch hunts, those merciless purges of alleged sorcery, were not mere episodes of superstition but vivid horrors, carved into the very soul of a civilization gripped by dread and suspicion. To walk through this history is to descend into a world where innocence was but a fragile veil, torn apart by accusation and torture, where the whispered word which became a death sentence whispered in every village square. At the heart of this grim narrative lies the figure of Agnes, a woman of simple means, but complex spirit, whose fate would become emblematic of countless others crushed beneath the weight of hysteria. Agnes lived on the edge of a forested village, her knowledge of herbs and healing both a blessing and a curse. In a time when women who dared to wield power, no matter how modest, were seen as threats, Agnes's skill painted a target on her back. To her neighbors, her healing hands were tainted with darkness, her kindness twisted into malevolence by fearful tongues. Medieval society was a crucible of anxiety, where disease, famine, and death stalked relentlessly, and the search for scapegoats turned to those who seemed different, who challenged the fragile order with their knowledge or independence. Witches were not mythical creatures but real victims of an unforgiving culture, accused of consorting with demons, cursing crops, or causing Their crimes were often simple acts of survival or misunderstood medicine, distorted into heresy and evil. The machinery of persecution was brutal and unforgiving. Trials were spectacles of agony, staged to root out confession through unbearable torture. Agnes endured the rack, the strappado, and the water ordeal, each designed to break flesh and spirit alike. Yet beyond the physical torment lay a deeper horror, the unraveling of identity and humanity, the shattering of mind under relentless cruelty. Those accused faced a torment that blurred the line between reality and nightmare, where every scream became a plea for release that might never come. The village itself became a stage for collective madness, where neighbors turned against neighbors, and paranoia fed on itself like a ravenous beast. Accusations flew like poisoned arrows, each more desperate and damning than the last. Agnes's trial was less about justice and more about spectacle, a ritual of fear meant to restore order by sacrificing a victim. Her eyes, once bright with life, dulled beneath the shadow of the Inquisitor's gaze, a haunting symbol of innocence extinguished. Behind the witch hunts lurked the church and state, institutions that wielded fear as a weapon to consolidate power and control. The hunt was as much political theater as it was religious crusade, a means to suppress dissent and enforce conformity. The Inquisition's flames licked the night air, a grim reminder of the price paid for transgression, real or imagined. Agnes's death was not just her own, but the death of justice, reason, and compassion in a world ruled by suspicion. Yet, even in the darkness, flickers of resistance and resilience emerged. Some whispered of mercy, of reason, of the humanity crushed beneath the machinery of fear. Agnes's story, though marked by tragedy, became a quiet testament to the victims forgotten by history, a call to remember those who suffered under the witch hunt's cruel shadow. Her fate was a mirror reflecting the terrible cost when fear is weaponized and justice sacrificed at the altar of hysteria. As we journey further into this harrowing tale, we will uncover the twisted laws, the torturous rituals, and the shattered lives behind the medieval witch hunts. This is not merely a story of the past, but a cautionary tale, a haunting reminder of the darkness lurking within societies when fear overcomes empathy, and the innocent become prey to the cruelty of their times. As the sun rose over the jagged rooftops of medieval towns, another day of terror began for those caught in the witch hunt's merciless grip. Agnes's story, though heart-wrenching, was only one thread in a vast tapestry woven with despair and cruelty that stretched across centuries and nations. Behind every accusation lay tangled motives: fear, envy, superstition, and a desperate desire to explain the unexplainable in a world teetering on the edge of chaos. The legal systems of the time were cruel instruments in this grim theater, designed less for justice and more for extraction of confession, often at any cost. The so-called witch trials were grotesque performances, blending judicial procedure with theatrical cruelty. Those accused were denied basic rights, subjected to brutal interrogation methods, and shackled by laws that presumed guilt from the start. Agnes's name was but one among thousands, each trial a chapter in a dark saga where law was twisted into a weapon of persecution. Among the most harrowing methods was the infamous swimming test, a macabre ritual where the accused was bound and thrown into water, judged innocent if they sank or guilty if they floated, marked by the alleged water-s rejection. This cruel paradox ensured death, no matter the outcome, a grim testament to the era's merciless logic. Agnes had heard of this ordeal, its horror whispered in frightened tones, and yet she faced even worse in the dungeons where darkness swallowed hope whole. The psychological warfare was as devastating as the physical torture. Accused witches endured relentless isolation, their minds fraying under the weight of suspicion and despair. Many confessed to fantastical crime pacts with demons, nocturnal flights, curses spoken not from truth but from shattered sanity forced by pain and fear. Agnes's confessions were torn from her like pieces of her soul, each one a bitter surrender to a nightmare she could not escape. The communities that condemned their own were bound by fear, but also by a cruel sense of justice. Witch hunts were a way to explain calamitous failed harvests, plagues, sudden deaths by identifying a human culprit. This scapegoating was a poison, spreading paranoia and tearing apart the fragile fabric of trust that held villages together. Agnes's neighbors, once friends, became accusers, their faces etched with both fear and fanaticism. The role of women in this dark saga cannot be overstated. The vast majority of those accused were female, often women who defied norm. Midwives, the elderly, the outspoken, marked for their difference and vulnerability. Agnes's story is entwined with the tragedy of gender, where misogyny fueled the fires of persecution. Her knowledge of herbs and her independence, qualities that might have been celebrated elsewhere, were twisted into sinister proofs of witchcraft. Religious zealotry fanned the flames of the hunt. The Church's doctrine condemned witches as servants of the devil, a blight to be eradicated for the salvation of souls. The Inquisition's agents were ruthless, their fervor matched only by the cruelty of the punishments they meted out. Agnes's execution was not just a legal sentence but a spiritual cleansing, a sacrifice demanded by the fearful collective conscience of a world at war with itself. Yet even amidst this horror, stories of bravery and subtle resistance flicker like fragile candles. Some clergy and nobles spoke out against the excesses, questioning the legitimacy of the hunts and the morality of the tortures. Hidden acts of kindness and courage offered faint hope to the condemned, though rarely enough to save them from their grim fate. Agnes's spirit, crushed but unbroken, lives on in these whispers of humanity struggling against despair. As we delve deeper into the witch hunt's chilling saga, we will reveal the twisted intersections of power, fear, and superstition that fueled the slaughter. We will meet the inquisitors and the accused, explore the rituals of torment, and uncover the lasting scars left on societies and souls alike. This is a story carved from darkness, but one that demands remembrance, lest the echoes of hysteria rise again. The flames that consumed the accused were more than physical. They devoured hope, justice, and humanity, leaving behind ashes of terror and shattered communities. Agnes's final days were a harrowing crescendo in the symphony of fear that defined the witch hunts. Bound and broken, she faced the inexorable judgment of a society eager for a scapegoat. Her screams swallowed by the night, her fate sealed by superstition and cruelty beyond reason. Each victim was caught in a web of inescapable fate, a tragic dance where accusations were spun from rumor, envy, and the need to explain the inexplicable. Agnes's trial was a chilling pageant of madness to Hall, echoing with cries of condemnation. The judge's gavel at death, knell ringing through the hollow corridors of justice. Her accused crimes, fantastical as they were, spoke to the era's terror of the unknown and the demonization of difference. The torment did not end with the execution. The witch hunts tore at the fabric of trust and shattered the social bonds that held communities together. Families were divided, neighbors turned informants, and fear crept into every hearth and home. The shadow of suspicion hung heavy, a ghost haunting the living as much as the dead. Agnes's name became a whispered curse, a symbol of the horrors birthed by collective fear and fanaticism. The witch hunts were also a mirror reflecting the darkest currents of human nature, fear morphing into cruelty, desperation into violence, and power wielded as a weapon of oppression. The Inquisition, emboldened by religious and political authority, pursued its quarry with merciless zeal, transforming law into a theater of terror. Agnes's suffering was amplified by the spectacle, a public warning carved in flesh and fire. Yet, within this bleak panorama, the victims' stories are not merely of death and despair, but of resilience and forgotten dignity. Agnes, though broken, embodied the tragic strength of those condemned for their difference. Their voices, though silenced by the flames, echo through history as warnings and lamentation. Each tortured confession and each whispered accusation is a thread in the tapestry of collective tragedy, a testament to the cost of unchecked hysteria. The legacy of the witch hunts endures, as a haunting reminder of the perils when fear eclipses reason and justice is surrendered to prejudice. Agnes's story compels us to remember the fragile line between civilization and savagery, between mercy and cruelty. It forces us to confront the ways in which societies can destroy their own under the guise of purity and order. As we near the conclusion of this grim tale, we will explore the lasting impact of the witch hunts, the reforms born from horror, the cultural scars left behind, and the lessons etched into the conscience of humanity. The story of Agnes and the countless others condemned as witches is a solemn call to vigilance against the resurgence of fear-fueled persecution in any form. The final echoes of the witch hunts linger like a chilling wind over centuries long past, yet their spectral presence still haunts the corridors of history. The death of Agnes was not the end, but a grim chapter in an ongoing saga of human cruelty masked as justice. As the fires died down and the smoke cleared, Europe faced the painful reckoning with the monstrous legacy it had created. Countless lives shattered, communities scarred, and a deep-seated fear that would echo for generations. In the aftermath, whispers of reform began to stir. Skeptics, enlightened thinkers, and courageous souls challenged the madness, calling for reason to reclaim its throne. The legal and ecclesiastical systems slowly evolved, laws were reformed, and the fevered hunts waned, replaced by the dawn of a more rational age. Yet, the wounds inflicted on the innocent would never fully heal. Agnes's name joined a silent chorus of victims whose stories were lost or buried beneath layers of myth and fear. The witch hunts also revealed the corrosive power of unchecked authority and collective hysteria. Lessons etched painfully into the fabric of human history. They stand as stark reminders that fear, when weaponized, can devour empathy and reason alike, transforming communities into hunting grounds for the vulnerable. Agnes's fate embodies this tragic truth, a woman crushed beneath the wheels of paranoia and power. Her life a testament to the cost of abandoning compassion. Today, the memory of those tortured as witches serves as a somber warning against intolerance, and it reminds us to vigilantly guard against the return of such darkness, to resist the seductive pull of fear that divides and destroys. The tale of Agnes and her fellow victims is not merely a relic of medieval brutality, but a mirror held up to modern society, challenging us to confront injustice wherever it festers. Her story, woven with threads of despair and fleeting courage, calls on us to honor those silenced voices by fostering understanding and justice. To remember is to resist the shadows that once claimed so many, to ensure that the horrors of the witch hunts remain confined to the past and never repeat. Agnes's spirit, though battered, endures in this legacy, a beacon, illuminating the darkness with the unyielding light of remembrance. As we close this haunting chapter, let us carry forward the lessons it in a world still grappling with fear and division. The brutal reality behind medieval witch hunts stands as a solemn testament that the true evil lies not in supposed witches, but in the hearts of those who succumb to fear and cruelty. May we never forget, and may history's darkest moments guide us toward a more compassionate tomorrow.